So today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make some really crazy particle effects in Minecraft using the particle generator from Draconic Evolution. And you'll be able to do some really crazy stuff like this one right here in your worlds. Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome to just a really quick tutorial. I had a question about the particle generator, and so I wanted to do just a quick tutorial kind of explaining how that works for those of you that have questions about it, because I've been using it a lot in my Project Ozone series. And so in case you guys had any question about how it works, we'll go over it in detail within this tutorial. Now bear in mind that the particle generator was sadly removed in 1.10. So just a heads up, 1.7 is the only place you'll really get to play with it. So anyways, if you open it up and you look through here, there's a bunch of different options in here. Okay, and we're going to be going over all of those. Also, if you ever have any questions, you need kind of a refresher, you can hit I right here, and you can go through, and this explains everything that you need to know about it. Now, there is some computer control that you can get into. I'm not going to be getting into that today. But first up, to actually run your particle generator, it is going to require a redstone signal. So you notice if I put a redstone block down right there, it starts emitting particles. And then if the redstone signal is removed, it stops emitting particles. However, you can shift right click with an empty hand and it inverts it. So now it doesn't require a redstone signal to run, and if it gets a redstone signal, it will shut off. Okay? Now first up, going through the options on this. First up, you have colors, and this can be anything within the full color spectrum. Okay, so you have the standard 255 color pattern. Okay, so let's say I wanted to make a very, very red particle. There you go. There's a red particle. Now what you can do is, let's set this down. Okay, now I'm creating black. Anything on this side, I believe that's true for, true for everything. This is a random variable. Okay, so right now it's 0, 0, 0, right? It's just creating black particles. However, let's say I set this up to 255. You'll notice now I have different colored shades of red on that particle. And basically what this variable does is it adds to this value here. And it can be anything, in this case it can be anything from 0 to 255. So if I was to set this, all three of these, red, green, and blue, up to 255, you'll notice now we're getting a rainbow effect with the particle generator. Okay, however, if I was to set these all to 255, now we're just creating white particles. Okay, this random effect is added to these. So if you set it, say, to 155, for example, now you'll notice I have a rainbow of colors. However, they're all on the lighter end of the spectrum, due to the fact that it has to at least start at 155, and then it can go up to, all the way up to 255. So it's just randomly generated particle colors in that case. Also, when you're changing the values, if you didn't notice right here, you can shift to get 10, control to get 50, and shift control to get 100 on your values. Now next up we have motion. Now you'll notice I have motion set to 0.2 right now. If I was to set this down to 0, you'll notice I'm not really creating any particles. The particles are being created inside of the particle generator, but they're just staying there within the particle generator because I'm not telling them to move in any direction. Okay? So what you're going to want to do to actually get them moving is set your motion. Now this corresponds to the X, Y, and Z coordinates, and if you go plus, let's say plus on Y, you'll notice that our particles start moving up. Okay? Now if instead I did motion negative Y, if we pop down here, you'll see that my particles are now moving down. Okay? And this is true for, X and Y. If you're moving north, that's going to be negative Z coordinates. If you're moving south, it's going to be positive on your Z coordinates. To the west is negative on your X coordinates, and to the east is positive on your X coordinates. Now in addition to controlling the direction that these go, also the higher that you set this, the faster your particles move. So if I was to set this like way up to that, you'll notice that my particles are moving way faster. So they're almost hard to see. They're moving so fast at this point. So you're going to want to play around with that and get your speed to, you know, roughly where you want it to be at. Now, in addition, you can also set random variables. So if I was to set this up, say, let's go to 2 and 2. Now you'll notice that spewing particles all over in that direction. Okay? And I'm going to go back to black particles. They're a little bit easier to see with the skyline there. But you can see, I mean, particles are going all over the place. Just random spew of particles. All right, now next up you have the life. Okay? Life, if we were to set this down to, say, 0, you'll notice no particles come out. Okay, life is the number of ticks that the particle is going to stay in motion before it despawns. So then if I set it up to 10 ticks, you'll notice they only make it out to about right here. Okay, and let's actually slow these particles down just a little bit so we can get a better idea looking at it. I'm going to go back to just straight up vertical. Okay, so you'll see that they despawn about right here. Okay, so they really don't last very long. They last half a second. But if I set this up to, say, 100, you'll notice that they go way higher. Okay, because now they're lasting for 5 seconds. So that's really all that life does. Now size, what we can do with this is we can bump it up and it increases the size of the particle. Okay, so now I'm creating these humongous black particles. And I'll show you the maximum size is 50, and you can see, I mean, these are rather large particle effects. It creates almost like a, you know, you might use this for some kind of like tractor beam or something like that. You could use it for, and that's pretty much what size does. And bear in mind that all of these have random variables, so you can have random life, you can have random size. So if you wanted it to be just all over the place on size, there you go. So now it's running right now between 6 and 36. Okay, bear in mind that this is added to that. So anything between 6 and 36 on the size is what that's creating at the moment. All right, now next up you have your spawn. Okay, this is kind of similar to the motion, except for spawn, X, Y, and Z, and it also has random. This is actually the last one that we have that has a random variable. But spawn is going to set where the particles spawn in relation to the particle generator. Okay, so if I was to set, say, let's set the X spawn up. Okay, now it would be, where is it spawning? Oh, right over there. So you can see that now the particle generator is sitting over here, but the particles are actually being spawned way over here. Okay, and I could also do, if I wanted to, I could set this, let's set this back down to 0, and then let's set the random variables up. Okay, so X and Y, and now you'll notice that it's spawning all over the place, and you kind of create like this haze effect, which would be good if you wanted to make, say, like a wall around like a, I don't know, a base, and make it look like there's like particles in the air, but it's not like a solid wall. You could do something like that, almost like a, I don't know, like a barrier kind of thing. You could do something with that. Now, if you wanted to, let's say, you know, you've got these going off in this direction because you can't, you know, just using the random variable, you can't really have it going here and here. But what you can do if you want is you can set the random variable up and then set the spawn at about negative, well, maybe not negative 50 because that's just going to cancel out. But let's go, say, negative 20. Okay, now I've got this particle more centered on the particle generator. Okay, so combining your straight value with your random variable, you can get your particles generating a little bit differently and stuff. And you could always set up a second particle generator next to this one and have it doing off in this direction, this one doing off in that direction, if you want those particles, you know, on both sides or whatever. Now next up you have the delay, and right now the delay is 1. Okay, basically it's trying to emit a particle once every tick, so 20 times a second. But what we can do is we can actually bump the delay up, so now you'll see 2 a second. Okay, at 10 ticks it's 2 a second. Delay at 20 is 1 a second. So you can kind of adjust your speed of emission on the particles. Now, I will say it's not accurate. It's not 100% accurate because, for example, if you were to set the delay back down, you can see that there's sometimes gaps between this. That just kind of happens with the way that it creates particles. However, I will say that the higher your delay, generally the more accurate it's going to be, in my experience. Okay, and then next up you have the fade. Now the fade adds to the life. Okay, so right now we have 100 tick life. Let's set this down just a little bit. Let's set it to 40 ticks. Okay, so they're going to start, let's actually set it down to 20 ticks. So it's a little bit closer to us. Okay, so you can see that the orbs are despawning right here, and they're just immediately despawning. But if you were to set fade to this, let's say you set the fade to 30, you'll notice that now they travel up higher and they slowly fade off, almost like a smoke effect. You know, smoke doesn't just immediately dissipate. It will travel up and kind of fade away, and that's, you know, kind of an effect that you can replicate with the particle generator using fade. And the higher you set the fade, it's going to add to the life. So your particles will go up higher, but they'll just slowly fade. And for example, at 50 fade, it's going to take them double as long to fade as if it was at 25. Okay, so it's going to be a slower fade instead of a more rapid fade. And you could set it up to 100, and if we set it up to 100, just for an example, you can see that the blocks actually really slowly fade off. And they travel rather high when you do that. Now next up, you have gravity. Okay, and gravity, let's say for example, I have a particle generator setting right here. You can see gravity on vertical height, but it's easier to see on horizontal height. But for example, we have particles going off in that direction, right? Let's actually bump the speed up, the size up on them. So we'll set it up to like 4, that's a little bit more visible. And then what we can do is let's set the gravity up. Okay, so let's set it up to 1-ish. You can see that now my particles start to fall and kind of travel in an arc. And you can adjust that arc. The stronger you make the gravity, the stronger the arc will become. Now you can also do negative gravity. So if you want these to arc upwards, you can do that. And they'll travel up. Now sadly there's no random variable, so you can't have them spewing off like all over the place. But you can do arcs with that. Now next up we have block collision. So for example, if I was to set a brick right here, you'll notice that my particles go straight through that brick. And let me actually set it up a little bit higher here. Okay, so they go straight through that brick. But if you click block collision on, you'll notice that now they get stopped by that brick and just kind of build up. Now it doesn't delete the particle, so they're just going to kind of build up there until they finally fade away. But if you wanted to have them fade as soon as they hit the brick, you'll kind of have to adjust the timing in the fade to make sure that they dissipate at the moment they touch the brick. So basically it's just going to stop them, and if you remove the block, like say you have a piston or something like that, the particles will stay there. You know, they're kind of stuck wherever they collided with that block. Now next up we have particle selected. Okay, now there's different particles. These are just kind of spheres, you know. But let's say we go to particle number 2. We are now creating squares. Okay, just big squares. So if you have a use for just a big like square block, you can do that. And then particle 3, I actually quite like this one. It's actually hard to see with this. Let me adjust the color a little bit. So let's set it to 255. You'll notice that the outside, it's kind of like a red aura that's created around that black orb. Okay, so for example, let's set all these up. Now we have kind of like a white aura around the black ball. Okay, so it's going to be like a darker center, and then it's going to kind of fade out into that color with particle 3. It's probably my favorite for most things. I'm actually going to leave it on that because it's a little bit more visible. And then you can set enabled on and off. So if you just want to manually come over and turn it off, you can do that, but bear in mind, if it's inverted, redstone signal will cut it off, and then if it's not inverted, redstone signal being off will turn it off. Okay, so no redstone signal will turn it off, and then if it's inverted, redstone will turn it off. Now last up we have the beam generator. Now there's two major things here. There's the beam generator itself, and the core. Now if I just turn on the core, you'll notice, I mean, it does nothing. Even if I set the colors up, it does nothing on its own. So what we have to do is we actually have to activate the beam generator. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn that on, and let's set the color on this for, you know, you've got the standard RGB colors right here. But let's say, for example, let's make it just straight black. Okay, now you notice it's not really doing anything. There's nothing coming out of this. But if we were to add to the length on this, let's go to just 0.1. Okay, you'll notice that inside of there now there's some kind of little core thing, right? What this is this is the beam. And what you'll probably want to set the length up a lot higher than that. That's just to kind of show you. Now let's set the length up to max. And the length actually, I don't even know what the max is. I think it's like 500 or something like that. No, 320. Okay. But you'll notice that it creates this beam particle effect, just like with the, I've actually got one over here. You know, the Draconic storage multi-block? Those beams that come out of that? Basically, it's just like that. But the nice thing is you can adjust the colors of this. So let's say, for example, we want it to be more of a red-green, this lime color. We can do that. Okay, let's say we want it just to be green. We can do that. If we want it to be black, we can do that. You know, you can freely adjust the colors of this as you see fit. Now next up you have the Y rot and the ZX rot. So let's set Y rot up, and you'll notice it kind of does like a diagonal beam that comes out. And then X and Y rot, you can kind of have it adjust off in the Z and X coordinates. And you can do like a full circle with it, you know. And then last up we have rotation. So if we were to set this up to 1, 1 is actually the highest on that, but it'll actually make the beam rotate. Kind of like a laser drill or something like that. You know, like I imagine those would be like. You can give it a little bit of rotation. And you can play around with it. You know, all of these, I'm going to kind of the extremes on a lot of them just to kind of show you, but if you slow down the rotation, you know, you have a slower rotation there. And you can also set it to negative if you want it to rotate counterclockwise. Now last up you have the scale, and if you were to set the scale up, you know, 0 of course, you can have like at 0.01 you can have this super tiny beam that comes out, and then up to 5 where you have this massive beam that comes out. And then lastly you have render core, and if you click this on, you'll get a core that is the same color as your beam. So for example, if I set this down and create a blue one, then I have a blue core. Okay. And if you set the scale up on this, it is going to increase the scale on your core. So at this point you can't even see the particle generator anymore. It's pretty much swallowed up by that core. Now you also notice that you have this take note of values. I absolutely love this feature. What you can do is you can click that and you'll get a piece of paper that says saved particle gen settings. And then what you can do is you can come over here, set up a new particle generator, and then you just right click your saved particle gen settings onto that, and you can see I just made a duplicate, an exact duplicate of all the settings that are within this particle generator. So you can see even the inverted redstone is copied. Whoops. Even the inverted redstone is copied. And all the internal settings are the same. So we have the same particles coming out, we have the same beam coming out, and it's identical to that one over there. So also, since we're on the topic of particles, bear in mind that if you want this nice like fog effect, that is from Botania. So, you know, I'm on Project Ozone 2 at the moment, but if you're on a different pack or something like that, and if you have Botania present, you can just throw down a mana spreader, and then you can put a lens, flare lens onto it, and it'll create that fog effect. Now you can't really do a whole lot of customization with that like you can with these particles, but one thing that you can do is you can take the lenses, throw them in a crafting table with whatever color dye you want, and now you can see that that is a purple tinted flare lens, and then you can just throw that down, throw that purple lens on there, and now I have more of like a purple fog effect. I do quite like these are one of my favorite blocks as well. So just a heads up, since we were talking about particles and stuff, I thought I'd bring that up in case you guys didn't know that that was there. But anyways, I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, as always, be sure to hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already to stay up to date with when new videos come out. And as always, if you guys have any questions, suggestions, requests, do let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you on that. And until next time, do take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys then.